I'm going down to South Park.
No, we're not! Turn this bus around right now!
Gonna leave South Park behind.
Well, I knew this day would come eventually. I consider myself a connoisseur of all things colorful, cartoonish, and carefully crafted, always eager to add new shows to my ever-expanding palette of animated artistry. But I guess I'm mostly going to be painting with shades of brown for this video because after all the recent rampant media coverage, including mocking Kanye West, teasing Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, exposing the US toilet paper industry, and even a $200 million lawsuit,
Guilty!
I figured it was finally time for me to see what all the fuss was about by going on down to South Park and having myself a time. Never a good time or a great time specifically, just a time.
That bodes well for my mental stability.
I do have to give Mike Stoner and Linkin Park credit. It's no easy feat to simultaneously have the most long-running, critically acclaimed, and in some ways reviled animated shows of all time. They do deserve the W for that one. But after extensive hours of research, I am here to present you all with the inescapable truth. There's no peeing around the bush, guys. South Park was hot trash. Like literal hot garbage. And before you even think about refuting this in the comments, because you can't, I've gathered some damning evidence to show you why this statement is not a subjective opinion, but objective fact. So park your butts down as they get probed with truth. It's time for the world to know why South Park was hot trash. Let's start this little dumpster fire at the beginning, before this show was even a gleam in these creators' eyes. Basically, while Matt and Trey were enrolled in the University of Colorado's film department, spending day after day on set shooting other people's movies, they obviously got pretty bored after a while. So the two started doing little improv skits with these crude-sounding child voices in order to make each other laugh. So yeah, all of that that you guys love so much started as just a way to pass the time while these two guys were falling asleep behind the camera. Eventually, in 1992, they decided to combine their talents to submit an entry for a short film showcase that was occurring in December at their college. Luckily, Parker was already pretty well versed in animation at the time, using a style involving construction paper cutouts and stop motion to make a short film called American History. And it was apparently impressive enough to net the guy a student prize. Congrats, my dude! I can't wait to see what awards you'll win next time you make a film. Never mind. Anyways, the duo decided to do a little something holiday themed for the season, so they slapped together a skit known as The Spirit of Christmas, later titled Jesus vs. Frosty. Most of the aspects you'll recognize from the show are here, like the four boys in their traditional winter attire, though a few names have been changed around, such as Kenny being called Stanley, and Cartman actually being called Kenny. If only those names had stuck when the show was being pitched. So you're telling me that Kenny has to die in every episode? Perfect! While the short was received very well, the duo didn't exactly go right into full-time animation afterwards, though their creative endeavors did lead to a snowball effect that eventually resulted in the South Park show that people know today. After getting funding from their university to shoot a full-length musical comedy based on Alfred Packer called Cannibal the Musical, I mean, I've heard of worse ideas for musicals. They were noticed and contacted by one Brian Graydon of Fox Network, who was eager to work with the duo. They tried and failed many times to pitch a product, like a kid's show about two upside-down singing monkeys, and a pilot called Rom and Jewel, which was a love story between a Homo erectus and an Australopithecus. Yeah, as you would expect, nobody cared for these ideas. So there the duo were, fresh out of college, jobless and destitute, splitting money for a single donut, until their buddy Brian gave them $1,200 to make a video Christmas card based on their Spirit of Christmas short from a while back. This one entitled Jesus vs. Santa. And what was expected to just be a dumb little return to animation for a wad of cash that they desperately needed became a massive hit with any family that watched it, being copied onto hundreds of tapes and seen by millions of people. Even George freaking Clooney was reported to have copied the special himself at least 300 times. So yeah, if you ever wondered how South Park got started, you can mostly thank this acting juggernaut for showing out tapes.
Never leave the cave without it.
At this point, Stone and Parker were receiving job offers left and right, including being asked to direct Barney the Dinosaur, which is definitely an image. But in the end, they tried pitching South Park to various companies who all turned them down. Heck, even Graydon chose to leave his job at Fox after they rejected the show since he wanted to go wherever South Park went. And in the end, the company daring enough to pick up the torch was, of course, Comedy Central. They commissioned the duo to make a pilot, and thus, production on had begun. Now, despite the entire show looking like the scrapbook of a serial killer, the very first episode was the only one to be fully animated using Parker's signature style, that being creating hundreds upon hundreds of construction paper cutouts and painstakingly photographing them from above with a camera to animate them. It reportedly took 3 months to make the dang thing, working day after day at Celluloid Studios in Denver, Colorado in 1996. Eventually, though, they had a finished product on their hands. It was crude, it was daring, it was subversive, it was higher quality than anything they had done before. And you can just imagine how the focus groups felt when they first laid eyes on this piece of history.
Oh my goodness, this is awful!
Yep, everyone hated it. Nobody liked it. When they asked for scores out of 10, they'd have been lucky to get above a 3. Comedy Central didn't pull the plug on the show right then and there since they were a starving network that was desperate for material, but they aired it kinda quietly with very little advertising. But against all odds, it freaking blew up. Almost 900,000 people tuned in to view the first episode alone, with the first season pulling in 5 million viewers per episode by the finale. The duo didn't expect the success to last and agreed to just ride it out till the end and then return home to Colorado. But by the time 15 seasons had aired, they basically said,
You know, I think we're good. Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
the only issue the higher-ups had was the time it took to make. 6 months is a long time to wait between single episodes, especially for a struggling network like CC. So they came up with a compromise. Instead of making new paper cutouts for each episode, they would scan the original cutouts into a series of computers and then move them around with animation software. This would retain the original construction paper textures and crude movements of the pilot without burning a hole in their wallets or the ozone. And that's the way the show is still animated to this day. These dumb little construction paper cutouts are the steel girders on which a legacy of subversive storytelling, status quo smashing crudeness, and audience-pleasing entertainment was built upon. These are the physical incarnations of two idiots' creative drive and desire to make something unique and funny. The first step up the stairway to success that the duo are still climbing. And even while scanned into high-tech computers, their unmistakable shapes and movements continue to win the world over to this day. In many ways, one could even say these paper cutouts are South Park. So, what does all this have to do with my thesis statement from before? Well, remember when I said that these characters were originally made out of construction paper? Here's a little something you might not know. Construction paper, or sugar paper, is made from a frothy combination of wood pulp, dye, and recycled paper. They start by making the pulp, which just involves mixing shredded wood with hot water until it becomes soft, all performed in a massive steel vat called a pulper. Very creative. Once the pulp is no longer fiction, they toss forensic dyes and recycled papers into the mix. And once the whole concoction becomes a consistent, colorful slurry, it's ready for the drying process. Now this is where it gets interesting. The new mixture is guided down a series of conveyors and placed under a series of heated barrels. And only when the mixture is officially dried out does it become construction paper, which is then cut and packaged and shipped off to kids and college dorks everywhere. So, let's review, shall we? We've already concluded that the original paper cutouts that Stone and Parker made are the building blocks on which this franchise was founded and are still being used in digital form to this day as the faces of the franchise. These cutouts, in a way, are South Park. Heck, some of them even say South Park on them. Now, if we look at the construction of construction paper, if the original mixture is mostly composed of recycled papers, which is essentially discarded waste paper that people didn't want anymore, garbage if you will, and it still retains some identity alongside its two other ingredients in a mixture before being dried out by the heating barrels and officially becoming the single entity of construction paper, no longer waste but brand new paper to be used again, this would mean that there must have been a period, albeit brief, where the waste paper slurry was not yet solidified, but instead simply brought to a very high temperature, therefore making it hot. And if all construction paper is made in a similar manner, including the same paper that Stone and Parker used to make their paper cutouts, which led to the pile, which led to many seasons, which led to a movie, which led to a game, which led to another game, which led to this, which led to that, which led to whatever the heck's going on here, which led to a multimedia dominating empire, it is definitive, irrefutable fact that at one point in its lifespan, South Park was hot trash. Oh, you wanted to know my thoughts on the actual show. I don't know, I haven't seen it yet.